suppose you got a letter predicting a stock to go up at the end of the month, and it did. Next month, you got another letter predicting the stock would go up at the end of the month, and it did. And the month after that, you got another letter. For 10 straight months, every time the advisor sent you a letter of a stock that's going to go up, it went up. You'd say that...
And sometimes it went down.
It went down?
When he wrote a letter and said it was going to go down.
Oh, well, yeah. But this guy only wrote letters that said they were going to go up.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So he was a real optimist.
Well, maybe he said there was a month or two when it was going to go down. He was right every single time.
He was right. So the point is that he sent out 10,240 letters, Mike. 5,120 said the stock was going to go up. 5,120 said they were going to go down. At the end of every month, another letter, but only to the 5,120 people that said that he said the stock was going to go up. The other 5,120 people never heard from him again.
Yep.
New letters, 2,560 letters go out. Stock's going to go down. 2,560 letters, the stock is going to go up. End of the month, another letter, but only to the 2,560 who got the letter in the correct direction of the stock.
Yep.
The other 2,560 never heard from him again.
Yeah.
End of the month, another letter, but only to the 1,280 that said the stock was going to move in the right direction. 640 up, 640 down. You get the idea.
Yeah.
From 640 to only 320 to 320 to 160, from that 160 to 80, from the 80 to 40, then to 20, finally to 10. 10 straight predictions, 10 excellent prospects for the Baltimore stockbroker. Brilliant at predicting the movement of individual stocks.
And wouldn't you invest?
If
somebody said, and sent you a letter once a month, and every time you sent the letter, he said it would go up or go down, and every single time it was correct.
It was correct.
And then when he says, would you put your life savings with me? Wouldn't you do that?
Sure. Every day and twice on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's not being, what are we not seeing, Mike? What's the sleight of hands?
We're not seeing that all but 10 people were rejected because the letters he sent to them predicted the wrong move. So only a 10 out of 10,000 got the 10 letters, everyone correct. But he didn't say anything was false.
No.
Didn't say anything that was not true.
Mm-mm.
He just didn't reveal the actual thing that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So that you draw an incorrect conclusion.
Isn't that what Bernie did? Kind of what Bernie was doing?
Yeah. Well,
I never had a bad month. Well, I had one bad quarter, and I was only down 1%.
Yep.
But he didn't tell you everything else was going on. You couldn't see.
Couldn't
see the man behind the curtain.
That's the way a lot of scams work.
Yeah. And
because you can't see everything that's going on, it looks very, very believable if you're sitting on the other side of the table.
Yeah. You're in essence, Mike, you're buying their confidence, right? Yep. This guy's so confident 10 times in a row. He's willing to send me 10 letters predicting that a stock will go up. He must know what he's doing, and he must be really good at it.
Really, really good.
It reminds me of our friend Mike. I won't mention his name, but you know who he is. He tends to change his algorithm every time when things don't go right. And I talked to another person who was very astute at finance and said the same thing. He said, yeah, he tends to change his algorithm every single time the market changes. His algorithm changes. He goes back and back tests, and it looks, I would have made you 2,000% if you would have invested with me, back tested. But it doesn't work to back test when going forward.
Because what happened in the past happened in the past. Is that saying in Las Vegas, what happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas?
That's right. What
happens in back testing
stays in back testing. I know. I mean, it's we were talking about it earlier. You mentioned something about you mentioned something. We were talking about this. I'll think of it, but back to the scams. We're talking about scams right now. And one of the biggest scams going on right now, Mike, is, it's not a new scam in a sense of what it does, how it works, but the mechanisms of how they're doing it are really sophisticated and downright devious.
They are really devious.
I mean, they call these pig butchering.
It's 4 times as large as the Madoff.
Yeah.
And it's only been operating since 2020.
Mm-hmm.
It's generated 2.4 billion of people that have been scammed by this pig butchering. And it begins with a contact. It begins, and I have to share that I've had a number of those contacts. It begins with a contact on Facebook or Instagram or through social media or some other means. And I tell you,
and it begins innocently, right? It begins harmlessly, like an innocuous. Hey, Mike. Like something to say something like, didn't we? I thought we met last night somewhere, and you're like, huh? Who is this? Oh yeah, and then you kind of blow it off, but you think, oh, maybe I should just find out who this is.
and then, well, can we be friends?
Yeah, yeah,
Sure, okay,
yeah,
you can be friends. Can
yeah,
we add you as a friend?
yeah.
Yeah, okay. And I didn't fall for the scam because almost immediately they want to be friends and talk. And from the beginning, I say, look, I've been happily married for over 54 years. I have 2 children and 4 grandchildren. You know, I set this thing straight. There's not going to be a romantic relationship. There's not going to be anything like that. But that's the way it usually begins. And it began almost well, you can think about it, in 2020 when we were locked down. And a lot of older people who are lonely, locked down,
Mm-hmm.
and no relationships. And then suddenly they get a message from somebody that wants to be a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And they take it even further. They want to talk about and develop a personal relationship. You know, in my case, I probably had 6 or 8 of these so-called women. Um, and almost every time they said, you don't talk to me enough.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I don't know you. You know, I don't talk on and develop relationships much on Facebook. I use it for business. I use Instagram.
Yeah, yeah.
But, you know, well, what do you do? I do stocks and bonds. Oh, they're really slow.
Mm-hmm.
I find it's much better. And I made a lot of money doing cryptocurrency. Now, when you look at their profiles on Facebook or on Instagram, they've got a lot of pictures. In my case, they were all young women, all maybe in their early 30s. They had pictures of them golfing. They had pictures of them in upscale restaurants. They had pictures of them at different cities, going to London, going to Paris, going to theater. All these pictures that gave the appearance, and at their dinners with some really nice wines. I like and collect wines, and so a couple times I Googled on the wines. They were drinking very, very expensive wines. It's all to give that impression. And I've known some people who actually made a lot of money from crypto. My IT guy that I used for over 20 years started minting Bitcoins when it was $2.50. And he's become a multimillionaire. Good for him. He travels, no longer does his business. So there was the possibility that these women had made a lot of money. And I thought, I will keep the contact open. And maybe when crypto crashes, and I do believe it's going to crash, if they convert some of the crypto to normal, they could be $1 million, $2 million, $10 million clients.
Mm-hmm.
I never realized that they were part of the pig butchering deal. You know?
But what they do, Mike, the way they operate, I read the story about one guy. He was in Silicon Valley,
Mm-hmm.
his family, and he was desperate for a job. He'd been 6 months out of work.
Yeah.
He found a job doing IT or something in Thailand or somewhere in
Thailand, yeah.
It was Thailand, right? He went to there, and there was no job in the city. And they said, well, we have a job. It's just in this district. He said he's desperate. He's like, okay. So they sent him, you need to take a cab to this hotel. He took a cab to that hotel. And then they made him wait again for another cab. Well, you got to take a cab up to this. He goes to this place, and it was like a bunker. Barbed wire, big walls going in like its own little city, armed guards, and they take his passport and his IDs. He can't leave, and he's made to pretend like he's some young girl online to go out and solicit, and they beat them if they don't.
And it's in Myanmar,
Yeah,
not in Thailand.
Yeah.
So they take him across the
they
border
cross the border.
and put him in a dormitory, which is walled in, and they teach him how to impersonate a young woman,
Mm-hmm.
that go after financially successful people, or maybe not even financially successful people, people that,
That they can call on, just people that are lonely, that are looking for a relationship, right? Well, there's tons of them out there. And there's people that get online dating sites looking for this type of relationship. So they think, oh, I'm onto something here.
so we're coming to a commercial break. Don't go away. You want to hear the rest of this story and what's going on? It's the pig butchering scam. It's the largest scam we've ever seen, and it's happening now. 2023, 2.3 billion this year alone. Don't go away. We're coming to commercial break. If you missed this program or any of our other programs, you'll find them on our website. You can also log on to YouTube, About Money, and you can find the programs there. Don't go away. You want to hear all this, how all this comes down. And we're also going to talk about 2024 and beyond. What's the market going to be? Don't go away. We'll be right back.
About Money with your AFC team, Mike and Al, on AM 1300, The Answer. For more information, click on adamsfinancialconcepts.com.
So, we've been talking about the pig butchering scheme. 2.9 billion. 4 times what Madoff did.
And the thing about the difference between Madoff is that there's no way to recover your money.
Yep.
At least with Madoff, they were to recover some of the assets and sell things back. And I think some people got made somewhat whole.
They got 90%.
Which is that's pretty damn good.
Of what they originally invested.
Yeah,
not what he said they made.
Yeah.
You know.
But even if you got 50 cents on the dollar back, that's still pretty good.
Yeah.
But with this, there's no recourse.
There's no recourse.
And that brings me to the next thing. They're trying to get this crypto ETF thing passed. And crypto's so unregulated, there's no way to track this stuff. Would an ETF solve that problem? I don't think so. How would it solve that problem?
I don't think it solves the problem at all.
No, because one of the caveats in this that I've read about what's getting the ETF, Mike, is they want them to waive the money laundering requirements that you and I and every other institution has to abide by. And they want the ETF, they want them to be able to have to bypass the money laundering requirements. This doesn't make any sense.
Because part of the concept of cryptocurrency is that it's yours and nobody knows who it is. There's no way to track it. You know, it's not like having a bank account where you're on a ledger somewhere, where if the books can be subpoenaed or discovered, your name shows up. In cryptocurrency, there's no way to trace it, and they want that to be part of what's going on.
But that's a problem when you're talking about what's going on with this pig butchering and other problems with cryptocurrency and scams that are happening and money laundering and things that how people use it. And the companies that got in trouble, like Binance, had to pay a $4 billion fine. And I don't know if his CEO is going to do prison time, but for letting, money laundering basically going through his company.
And FTX.
Yeah.
I mean, cryptocurrency has certain applications, but it's unregulated. And there's no way to know whether your cryptocurrency is really real or not.
No, these scammers use, they pick up real accounts and take, screenshots of them and send them to the potential client saying, hey, you need to invest here, and have them set up these accounts. Once the money goes in, and the reason why I say the scam isn't new is because it's kind of like what the old mafia used to do, right? They used to get the credit cards of people, and they wouldn't go out and run up $50,000 on the credit card right away. They'd bleed them $1,000 here, $1,500 here, and then before they knew it, they bled them out and kept the thing going as long as they could to bleed it out for as much as they could for as long as they could.
Well, and the pig butchering thing, coming back to that, it's you build the relationship. They build a relationship with what you think is a young woman who really likes you and gets along with you and similar interest, and then she says, I made $10,000 or I made $100,000 today in crypto.
Yeah.
Well, I do stocks and bonds. Oh, but that's so slow. I made $100,000 just in a couple hours.
Mm-hmm.
They want you to say how.
Oh, yeah.
When you say how, I have a manager who can really help you out, and you put in 10,000 or 15,000 or whatever it is, and your money doubles.
Yep.
or triples. And so you should put in more money.
That's
So put in more.
so-
And then,
Yep.
you're making so much money. And there's no way to know if it's really true or
No.
not true. In some of the pig butchering cases, they've done crypto. In a lot of other cases, they just say the money has doubled.
Oh yeah, like one of the victims, Mike, was a 71-year-old guy in California. He sent money to a crypto wallet that channeled more than 100,000 into an account, according to the blockchain analysis company. And the man finally told Reuters he lost about 2.7 million, his life savings, after falling prey to someone claiming to be an attractive young woman called Emma.
Yes. And what happens is once you have no more money, they disappear.
They're gone. You can't get a hold of them.
They completely disappear.
Not only you're broke, now you're heartbroken too.
And as you say, with Madoff, they were able to claw back money. They were able to sell assets. They were able to get back some money. And it wasn't, for somebody that invested $500,000 and their account over a period of 8 or 10 years climbed from $500,000 to maybe $1.5 million. They got back 90% of the 500,000, not 90% of the 1.5 million,
Which is still good.
which is really good.
But with this is no recourse.
Zero.
recourse. Your money's gone.
And their whole focus is to clean out your bank accounts.
Yeah.
That's,
And they do it. The thing is why they call it pig butchering, because they're doing it. Like I said, they're doing it slowly, a little bit at a time, build the confidence in them, and then they ask for a big chunk, and then you keep putting more money in, and it's good. Then it's gone.
and I think the terminology pig comes from a colloquial term used for men who pay for women, sugar daddy types,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. They butcher the pigs. It's sad. So anyway, the reason to bring it up on the program is if you have Instagram or Facebook and you have a romantic relationship going on with a woman you don't know, there's a good chance that woman is not a woman. There's a good chance that's a man. That's a good chance that they don't live in London or Paris or New York City. They live in Myanmar
Or the Seychelles
or
Island,
Burma or Seychelles
yeah,
or
yeah.
somewhere else where they are in a dormitory with barbed wire. They don't have their passport and there's no way for them
And
to
there's no
escape.
regulation there. We have no recourse.
And if you send them money, write it off and just walk away now.
Yep.
Anyway, with that said, let's turn and talk about 2024, the economy and the market. Because right now there's no real consensus. No, but you have people that say there's going to be a great crash like 2008. You have other people saying it's all rosy. You have people saying things are going to go well. There's not really a consensus. You have people like Commonwealth that says we're in a Goldilocks economy.
Not too hot, not too cold, just right.
Just right.
I don't know. I mean, you had Steve Eastman yesterday coming out saying that he thinks people were just too overly optimistic after 2023 because 2023 they went into pessimistic. We're going to have a recession. We're going to have a recession. We were dealing with inflation, and the economy wasn't going to do anything. And we saw unemployment stay really low. We saw people still continue to spend money. It was, the spending is going to slow down. It's going to slow down. That didn't happen, and the stock market did really well.
Wall Street got it completely wrong.
Right. And now everyone's like, oh, wait, if that was so good and that was a bad year, that was supposed to be a bad year, this should be a really good year. And let me throw another thing. It's all driven by, they thought AI is going to be like the dot-coms, Mike, back in 98 and 99. This is going to create a whole new super cycle revolution, which I'm not saying it won't. But we've been touting, and we said even last year, they haven't really monetized AI. There's really no AI stock that you could say this is definitely an AI, 100% AI play, and they monetize, and they're going to make, whatever they're going to make, triple their revenues in, a month or a week or a quarter or whatever.
Well, I can remember the dot-coms, and I think the point you bring up is really valid. It's very similar to that. In dot-coms, when they initially began, dot-coms began even more speculative than AI. The dot-coms came, it was based on the internet. The internet was new. As I looked, I was early in the internet and doing a couple stocks in the internet, but it was a very different beginning. But at that time, I looked at Microsoft, and Microsoft computer memories were doubling every 18 months. And that meant Microsoft could double the amount of script they were writing in Word and Excel and all these other programs, and continued to sell a lot of software. And I looked at the internet, which was doubling every 6 months, and said there's huge potential for the internet. And so I actually owned two stocks. I bought UUNet and Mosaic. Mosaic, which became the script for Internet Explorer, Microsoft's product. Microsoft bought that. And UUNet, which became the backbone for Microsoft. Microsoft bought both of those companies. And that's how they launched into the internet. And I could see a huge potential. But as things started going, companies started coming out with this whole concept that the internet's going to replace brick and mortar stores.
I remember that.
Yep. Brick and mortar
is dead. They were dead. Yeah.
And it was going to be the information highway.
That's funny you say that, because I had a conversation with my wife the other day. One of her colleagues they work in medical field, nursing and stuff. And they were talking about how AI is going to replace all these jobs. And I said, it's not going to happen. I said, a lot of studies, if we look at robotics and stuff in Japan, we talked about that months ago. And when they see this stuff start happening and the companies become more efficient, they need more people on the grounds actually not solicit, but to keep up with the sales that they're making, because the company becomes efficient and people want to start using the product. They actually start hiring people. Now, it might be in a different capacity than they were before, but it's not going to be like there's going to be no people. It's going to be like that movie WALL-E, where we're all just sitting on float tubes around this big thing, drinking big gulps. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah.
Oh, you got to see it. So he's a little robot, and he goes on this spaceship, and nobody works on the spaceship. They're all getting, they're probably on, what is that, the universal basic income. So they're all like really obese people sitting on a little, like lounge chairs, right? They just go around, and they got their food comes to them, and they don't have to bring the food to their mouth. And like that little hand comes up and feeds them and everything. I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think so. Anyway, we're coming to a commercial break. We're going to come back and talk more about 2024 and what is going to happen. I think it's more complicated than most people realize.
We haven't even thrown the election in there yet, so let's talk about that.
We'll have the election in there too. So don't go away. We're coming right back after this commercial break. We will be right back. Wall Street in 2023 got it wrong, dead wrong. Wall Street said people should sell their U.S. stocks. People said they should buy treasuries and buy Chinese stocks. I mean, they got it dead wrong. The reason they said to sell stocks...
They've always gotten it wrong, Mike.
No, not always. Morgan Stanley came out ahead of 2022 and said there's going to be a recession. And he got it right in 2022. And then in 2023, he said, it's going to get even worse. He was wrong. In 2024, he's now predicting, maybe he's a little bit wrong, but we're still going to have the recession. But the whole focus was, we're going to have a recession. When you have a recession, stock prices go down, and there's a flight to quality, a flight from stocks into bonds. Mm-hmm. And so the ultimate was the short sellers. Short sellers took it at gospel. They took it as this is the way it's going to be. They started shorting. Mm-hmm. And in 2023, short sellers lost $178 billion. Mm-hmm.
We saw some prominent people close out their short treasury stock. Bill Ackman was one of them.
And saw them just close out some of their stock positions. Yeah. A huge amount. Morgan Stanley was the leader. They're continuing to be followed up. You look at what they're doing. And when the markets started going up in early 2023, Morgan Stanley came out and said, this is a bear trap.
Yep.
The stock market's going up. It's going to get all the bulls going, and then it's going to collapse. Mm-hmm. And to some extent it did in August and September and October.
But then it rebounded toward the end of the year.
It probably would have rebounded in October except for October 7th.
Oh, because of what happened in
Israel.
Yes, Israel, yes.
But it did rebound at the end of the year, and it did have one. And as far as treasuries, I mean, the idea was to sell U.S. stocks, which are going to go down and lose money. By treasuries, you get a nice 5% return, and you can wait to buy stocks at lower prices. For those who are waiting to buy those stocks at lower prices,
Good luck.
they're going to wait a long time, maybe. And for Chinese stocks, we've been talking all of last year about China. The economy in China is really in great financial
You got a prime minister who's drawn his line in the sand, who doesn't really care.
And you have a real estate problem, you have a business problem.
I think it's more of a psychology problem, Mike, and anything. I mean, I get the real estate, that's a problem, but when you got a prime minister who's basically telling his people to, eat crow and sow bitterness and eat crow, that just grains into the psychology of the people when you got in young people, 21% unemployment rate amongst young people in their 20s.
Yep. COVID closed down China for most of 2020 through. And then at the end of 2022, they opened it up. And the idea was, people are just going to spend a lot of money. It's going to be just like the United States, people spending money. Didn't work that way.
No.
May have been the second largest economy, but the economy is, from its high rate of growth, has slowed down to a very slow rate of growth. So Wall Street got it wrong in 2023. There's a lot of people on Wall Street who are going to get it wrong in 2024 and 25 and 26.
Well, yeah, they did I think it was Barron's did a big article about why BYD is, it's so much cheaper multiples than Tesla. And their cars are cheaper and they're going to sell more cars and beat Tesla. But the only reason their cars are cheaper is because of the Chinese labor. I mean, their materials can't be any cheaper. To build a car can't be that much cheaper, but why Tesla stock is trading at what it's trading at, and that one's trading at like 10 times earnings, because it's in China. If that company was in Germany or Japan, it would be trading just like Tesla.
Yeah. So that didn't work. It's probably not going to work in 2024.
I don't see it happening.
And while Wall Street and a lot of corporate executives said in 2023, we're going to go for a recession, we've been saying for the whole period of time of 22, 23, we don't see a recession because we saw 4 million more jobs than there were workers to fill those jobs. And as long as that condition exists, we saw the people coming out of the COVID in 20 and 21, having been locked down, having no place to go, having done their shopping online.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I heard several stories when they go, National Public Radio, and driving around, they're going around interviewing people before the holidays about spending money for the economy.
Yeah.
And this is, again, back like China, this is psychology, right? And so people were basically saying, well, I have a job, I have a good job, and if I want, I can go get another one, probably make a little bit more money. So I'm not really concerned about putting a few bucks on my credit card.
Yep. And they did.
Yeah.
And we're seeing, travel return to normal levels. We're seeing hotels return to normal levels.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing restaurants going even higher. We have a client who's a restaurateur who says 1/3 of the restaurants failed during COVID. So you have only 2/3 as many, and they're doing bang up business. Go to restaurants and see. Most of the restaurants are so busy.
Busy.
If you don't have a reservation 3 years in advance.
3 years, huh?
Yes, that's an exaggeration.
That's only the 4-star Michelin ones that Mike can go to. So
no, that's an exaggeration, of course. But I mean, they're booked,
and they can't find help. They cannot find help.
No.
So as long as that situation and that part of the economy continues, it's really hard to say we're going to have a recession.
But what is happening is automation is taking place.
No question about it.
I shared the story before about being on the airport, going to California for Thanksgiving, and going into a restaurant where you have a QR code on the table. You click on that to get the menu. You order on the menu. There's a person that comes around and asks what you want to drink, coffee or whatever, and they serve that. And there's a person in the kitchen that nukes the food, brings it out to you. And those are the only two people working a restaurant with probably 30 or 40 customers. And when it comes time to pay, you go back to your phone, you make the payment on your phone. There's no real interaction.
Mhm.
It's all right there, automated. Our restaurant client said, there's a restaurant you have to go see in West Seattle called Dua Cocina. It's a pasta restaurant. You go in, there's a board that lists all the different pastas, all the different sauces, salads, and so on. There's a screen. On the screen, you order the pasta you want, the sauce you want, order your drink, and they have 4 people in the kitchen preparing your food. When it's done, they set it on a counter. You come pick up your food. It's all automated.
Mhm.
And actually, it's pretty good, I have to say. The
I,
pasta's fresh.
I told you when I was
the sauces are fresh.
down at the hotel down in SeaTac, and I was parking, and I saw this little R2D2 machine come out. He was the security.
Yep.
He was able to go around and pick up all the license plates because I only stayed maybe 2 minutes because I didn't need to stay. So as soon as I went out, I hit the button, and they just let me out because they knew, oh, he's only been here 2 minutes. I didn't have to interact with anybody.
Yeah. We're seeing more and more of that, and we're going to continue to see that. I mean, Walmart came out and said that they're going to continue to grow in terms of revenues, in terms of profits, but they don't see growing anymore in terms of the number of people they employ. So what they're doing is they're automating a lot of their systems. I mean, car dealerships.
Is it going to be automated? Is it going to be an automated greeter at Walmart?
I don't know. But I mean, we're seeing that. I happen to, when you have a Tesla, the charging stations are usually by places where you can go in and get coffee or food or whatever. And I went into a McDonald's. I hadn't been into the McDonald's for a while. And I went to the counter, and I'm waiting, and man, service has gotten really bad, horribly bad. I will write a letter. I'm going to complain to somebody because I can't get service. And finally, somebody came and said, you have to go to the kiosk to order. I said, what?
Just press a few buttons.
You have to go press a few buttons. You put down the table you're sitting at, and somebody brings your food. I mean, it used to be you had people that would wait on you, that would take your order, that would enter it on a screen. All of that's gone. You go to the kiosk, you order what you want. It's brought. Tell them what table you're sitting at. I thought of trying to put in the wrong table and sit at a different table and see what happened. I was afraid that I would pay for my food and they would take it back to the kitchen. So,
but what does this mean for 2024? Bring it back to 2024. So we've seen the markets the first couple of days of the year not do so good.
I think 2024 we're going to see this excess number of jobs over number of people wanting a job begin to shrink. It's already beginning to shrink. I saw a report by Goldman Sachs that said it's down to 2 million from 4 million in 2 years. If that continues to shrink, it puts us back into a normal supply-demand condition for labor.
Right.
And that's going to slow down wage increases. But as we look toward 2024, I was looking, because I believe that history doesn't repeat, that it rhymes. And I've been looking back in history to see what looks like 2024. Not 2019. 1990s and the fall of the Iron Curtain and the fall of the Soviet bloc. Doesn't look like that. Doesn't look like the 1980s, which was following inflation. Doesn't look like the 60s and 70s during inflation. What does it look like? We're gonna come back to that and talk about that after this commercial break. I mean, it's important to understand where we're headed and what we're doing and where to be invested. And that's coming after the commercial break. So don't go away. We'll be right back. And if you missed this program or any others, you can check us out.
About Money with the AFC team, Mike and Al on AM 1300, The Answer. For more information, click on adamsfinancialconcepts.com.
So 2024, what's it going to be like?
1924?
It very well could be.
I know. That's the only thing I can think of as far as like coming out of a pandemic.
Yep.
All right, we're not coming out of a world war.
But we're coming out of a conflict.
Two conflicts that could potentially spill over.
We're coming, and it was a very, very good time.
Yeah.
There were, prior to the 1920s, you had a number of cycles like 2008. From 1873 to 1907, you had 6 of them. So there's that similarity. It was also a time of great innovation. You had factories moving to round-the-clock schedules because you had electricity prior to the
Yeah,
1920s.
the automobile.
Yep. Prior to the 1920s, you didn't have electricity, and so when it got dark at night, you weren't going to run a factory by candlelight.
Mhm.
So factories ran only during the day. Electricity gave them the ability to run round the clock. The automobile came, completely revolutionized what was going on in transportation.
And I think I don't know if was it the 20s when refrigeration came in,
Yeah,
and that revolutionized food. Right now, I could store food. I don't have to perishables. I don't have to waste so much or eat it right away.
gave rise to the grocery stores.
Yeah.
I mean, the telephone came.
Hmm.
I mean, I can remember reading articles about the telephone and the claims of it was going to do away with the opera. It was going to do away with symphonies because now you could just get, oh, that was the radio. But the telephone was given some of those characteristics as well. But it shortened the distance of transportation.
I know you and I both like Downton Abbey. I don't know if you remember the first season when Carson, the butler, first sees the first electric light.
Yes.
And how horrible the electricity is, and why don't we just stick with candles?
Yes. I mean, it may be like the 20s.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at what we're going to see, we're going to continue to see a lot of full employment, even though the difference between the number of jobs available and the number of workers to fill them is shrinking. It's not going to go to zero probably in 2024, maybe get closer. So you're going to have full employment, and that means incomes are going to continue to grow. You're going to have inflation. While the Fed has brought inflation down to a more normal level or closer to a normal level, we're still going to have.
No, and I think, before the period when we started raising interest rates, we were in ultra low interest rate environment that was really not real.
Yeah.
I mean, let's put this that we have inflation now, but in reality, it's just a normalization of the economy, right?
Mhm.
I mean, before 2008, the federal funds rate was 4.7, 4.8%.
Yeah.
Right now we're at 4.8, bouncing between 4.6 and 4.9, which is really not historically not out of the range. But we got so addicted to 0.5%, 1% on the federal funds rate that we became addicted to cheap money.
Yeah. It was below 4, but you're right. It was addicted to low money.
So this is just a normal. This isn't high inflation in the sense that it's just a normalization of what historically.
Yes. And we're seeing the impact of climate change.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about wine at lunch.
Yeah.
And the fact is, the UK is now growing a high quality champagne. It's warmed up enough that the UK has good conditions to grow, and you can't call it champagne because it's not made in France.
Just call it bubbly. Just call it bubbly.
Bubbly.
Yeah.
But it's the equivalent of French champagnes.
Yeah.
And it's happening there in the UK.
The great wine regions are shifting. From what I've read, is that even like Burgundy, I mentioned to you at lunch, is that some of the hills around Burgundy are now producing the quality Burgundies that the great wineries there were producing because of the way the climate change has shifted, and they're getting that warmth, and so the grapes are ripening.
Yeah, that's going to change the world economy. Not just wine, but I mean...
No, but everything, right? We're talking about agriculture, and that's one offshoot of agriculture. But, just even in Africa, how things are going to change there and how they're going to grow. We talked about crops growing there and how that's going to change.
Yeah, 1/3 of the world's population lives without electricity and without running water.
Mm-hmm.
And that's beginning to change. And as that happens, those areas become growth areas. Countries are looking at, you were mentioning too, not Senegal.
No, it's Sudan, South Sudan.
South Sudan. And a government that wants to put in resorts to bring in tourists.
And they have one of the largest game preserves in the world. They think it's even greater than, it's untouched. It's pristine.
And
there's a lot of controversy over bringing in, game preserve, not game, hunting lodges and things like that, right?
Yeah. But those things are changing, and that's changing the world. That's going to change the economics and what goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked in the past about these Standard & Poor's companies. Half of their revenues come from overseas. For 2024 and 25 and going forward, that's going to continue. But those, what's supplied overseas, what they build overseas, and it's not building overseas to ship back to the U.S. A Starbucks sells coffee in China or in India or where UK. Those stores are not shipping coffee cups or cups of coffee back to the U.S. They're making it for those consumers there.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see that electricity. We're going to see all the demand happening overseas, and U.S. companies that are going to be driving a lot of that. We've talked about technology and the differences between technology development in the U.S. and in China. Even China, the second largest country, but technology change is happening not just in the U.S. or in China, it's happening all around the world. Think about the students in Africa. You have a student in Kenya that's doing a math course that she's studying from a course that's being taught in Cambridge in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
The internet and what's gone on makes all of that possible. It really has changed. And those things are going to probably accelerate in 2024.
One thing we didn't get to, Mike, yet though, is the big election this year.
What?
As far as the election, how the election is going to affect the
Oh, yeah.
economy. How are we going to see Powell fold and lower interest rates? Is that something that is he going to be is he a politician, or is he the Fed chief?
That's, yeah, the election brings in a whole new, but the impact of the election will not be felt in 2025.
No, right, but it's the perception, right?
But it's the perception.
If we see, as you're saying, that the job vacancies are down to 2 million in the economy, we see the markets shaky the first couple days, and that affects people's confidence, right? They see their accounts go down and they don't feel too good about it. So Biden puts a little pressure on, like every president does, to a little nudge those interest rates down. Give some sort of goose to the economy, even just the markets, just so psychologically people feel like, oh, okay, we're still doing okay.
It's going to be an interesting year.
That's for sure.
And there's nothing that we can see, unless it's maybe the 20s, where we have anything that's similar.
Yeah.
So stick around as the year does unfold. We'll have more input. And by the end of 2024, we'll have pretty sure we can tell you how it went. Join us next week when we will be back to talk about money.